Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan and today I am starting a really fun video because I recently discovered that there is an author named Jordan Taylor, and let me show you how that's spelled. So it's Jordan with a Y, and why that is cool is because my name is Jordan, spelled the same way, and my middle name is Taylor. So I think it's kind of cool to see a book with my first and middle name on the cover, even though obviously I didn't write the book and it's obviously not my first and last name. But I don't know guys, I think it's cool. I found this author on Twitter a couple of months ago. I followed her, I've been following her ever since, and as soon as I realized that she had 2 books out, I knew that I wanted to read them. So that is what I'm doing today. These books are both young adult books, but what's interesting is they are 2 pretty different genres. So the first book that I'll be reading and that she's published is called The Paper Girl of Paris, and this is a YA historical fiction book. According to the synopsis, it sounds like it follows 2 different timelines of 2 16-year-old girls living in Paris. One is present day, it seems like, and one is in the past. And I believe our present day main character is finding out what happened to that 16-year-old girl in the past. And it's all centered around Paris, which I think is really fun. And then the second book is actually a relatively new release. I believe it just came out in June of this year, or at least that's when my library got a copy, because it says it's new as of June of 2021. But this is a young adult mystery thriller. Looking at the synopsis again, it also looks like we're following 2 different timelines, one in present day and one in 1962. Otherwise, I don't really know what the mystery aspect is here, and I'm gonna leave it that way because that's how I like to treat my mystery thrillers. But that's it. We've just got these 2 books to read in this vlog. I'm really excited. I hope I like it. Young adult is not really my preferred age range to read in, but I do like historical fiction and I like mystery thrillers. So definitely hoping that both of these end up working for me. And I hope that I can say that I have a new favorite author who just happens to have the same exact name as me. I probably will go in publication order, so I will be reading The Paper Girl of Paris first, and I will let you know what I think. Hey friends, I just finished The Paper Girl of Paris and I'm ready to give my thoughts on it. I really liked it. And I'm actually a little bit surprised that I liked it as much as I did, given that it is a YA historical fiction. So the plot of this book in a little more detail, we're following 2 different timelines. The first is present day. We're following a 16-year-old girl named Alice who is visiting Paris with her parents because her grandmother has just passed away and she left her apartment in her will to Alice, her granddaughter. And there's a little bit of a mystery regarding why this apartment was left to Alice. And so she's doing some mystery detective work, kind of looking into her grandmother's past and trying to answer that question. While she's doing that, she discovers that her grandmother had a sister who she never knew about, who Alice never knew about. And so Alice also then starts to dig on her grandmother's sister as well. And then the second timeline and perspective that we're following is from Alice's grandmother's sister back in, it doesn't say exactly what year in the synopsis, but during World War II. I find it very interesting that I just read this book when I actually also just finished a book called The Alice Network, which is an adult historical fiction, which actually has a really similar plot and structure to the book, but this is just an adult version. I read this as part of a video, which will be coming out very soon, so I don't want to spoil my thoughts, but what I will say is that this book actually turned out to be like the perfect young adult version of that book for me. And what I mean by that is I thought this book, what it did really well is the balance between young adult simplicity and storyline and characters. Both of the characters we're following when they're around 16 years old. It pairs that simplicity with still complex, you know, emotions. And obviously World War II, super emotional, lots of emotional stories to tell, even fictional ones. And so it's not that this book doesn't get dark, it just doesn't get as dark as an adult version would. I liked that it was a little bit lighter and I could just read through it a little bit faster. And so, I don't know, I just thought that was kind of a neat coincidence and ended up really paying off for my enjoyment of this book. So definitely recommend it if you're someone who likes historical fiction, but maybe sometimes gets turned off by super like slow and dredging historical fiction books. If you're wanting something a little bit lighter and faster, but that's still set in the same time period and still has an emotional story to tell, I would pick this one up. I would give it a try. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this book 4 stars. And that brings me to the second book of this video. I have not started it yet. I still don't know really anything about the plot or anything. After reading this historical fiction book, I'm very interested to read a thriller from this author now because the styles are so different. But one book down, one to go, and I will let you know once I have finished that other book. All right, you guys, good news. Really good news actually. I just finished the second book, Don't Breathe a Word, and I'm so happy to report that I really liked this book also. I think I actually liked it more than The Paper Girl of Paris. So let's first talk about what this is about. So this is a YA mystery thriller, like I said, and don't worry, I'm not going to tell you too much because I think what I liked about this book was how little I knew going in and kind of just discovering the plot as it came. So what I can tell you is this book follows 2 different perspectives in 2 different time periods. The first is present day. We're following a girl named Eva who is at a private boarding school. She's in her junior year, I think, in high school. And her story is she's being inducted into this secret society. It's very mysterious and we're following her through that journey. And then the second timeline is in 1962 and we're following our main character named Connie, who is a student at the same boarding school, and her storyline has to do with a nuclear bomb fallout shelter. And this book was so good. It's kind of giving me like an existential crisis a little bit because I've been thinking and saying for so long that I don't like YA very much, and I think I'm discovering that I just don't like YA contemporary romance. I think that other young adult genres really work for me. I'm discovering some of my favorite books and they're young adult. So like obviously the last book I read, Paper Girl of Paris, young adult historical fiction, loved it. That's the only YA historical fiction I've read that I can think of, and it was really good. Young adult mystery thriller, I think when it's done right, can really work. And then 2 of my favorite books of all time are young adult sci-fi books. Those books are Slay and The Cost of Knowing by Brittany Morris. I try to talk about them as much as I possibly can on my channel because I'm just obsessed with them. But those are both like sci-fi young adult books and they're excellent. And so let's talk about why I think I liked this mystery thriller, this YA mystery thriller, when I don't always like YA mystery thrillers. First thing is usually they feel low stakes. Usually teenagers aren't necessarily in like life or death situations, or if they are, it feels totally unrealistic. But this book, the life or death high stakesness feels very real, and even the parts of it that aren't necessarily life or death still feel very impactful to these teenagers. I also think YA mystery thrillers and YA contemporary romances often feel just surface level and predictable. Like it's always the same kind of characters going through the same high school struggles and they always seem to work out the same way. But this turns that completely on its head. It was a completely original story. I've never read these characters or these storylines before. Them being at a boarding school actually made the high school experience seem different and interesting to me. I wasn't asking myself like, where are the parents? Which is oftentimes like a complaint of YA books, is that high school characters or high school students and kids in general don't have the freedom that's usually expressed in books. Like they're off wandering, you know, on their own and in places they shouldn't be late at night, yada yada. But here, when they're at a boarding school, they don't have parents there looking after them. So it's more believable, you know, when they find themselves in these situations. I just really liked it. And one more thing on like plot that I really like, just in general, I'm discovering something that is going to sound obvious when I say it, but I'll be more specific in a second. But I love plots that are unique and original. And again, that seems obvious, like everyone loves plots that are unique and original, but I specifically mean like when you hear the synopsis, they're something different, like a situation you've never thought about or you've never heard of. I just get so tired of the same thing over and over, like light and fluffy romances where there's nothing unique, or mystery thrillers where it's, you know, the one woman gets jealous of another woman and everyone's cheating on their spouses and things like that, where you've read the conflicts before and you know exactly what the resolution is going to be. I like stories that are original, and some examples that I can think of are like Taylor Jenkins Reid books. She writes, well, now she writes kind of historical fiction, but she used to write contemporary romance. And each one of her books has such a unique and identifiable plot to them. Like one of her romances is a woman who is married to someone who is in a plane crash and is presumed dead. She moves on, gets remarried, and then the original husband is actually alive, and so now this woman has to choose between two men that she's fallen in love with. That's super unique. I haven't read that anywhere else. Or another one of her books being about a married couple who decides to go on a year-long break where they don't talk to each other, don't communicate, don't do anything, live their own separate lives, and then come together and decide if they want to remain married. That's a completely original romance premise. So that's what I mean. I don't know, I could go on and on, but I just think that this premise is something I haven't read before. I've heard of books that do, you know, the secret society thing, but the nuclear bomb fallout shelter thing, I've never read that. So it was just cool to read about. So I think that's it. I think that's all my ramblings that I have to say about this book. I'm definitely going to be ordering this book, a copy for myself. I think it's going to be super cool to have a Jordan Taylor book on my shelves. I also think this book cover is super unique and cool. I love the colors of it. And yeah, excited to see what she puts out next. But that's all for this video because unfortunately she only has 2 books out at this current moment in time. But I will be continuing to follow this author and to see when she puts future books out. I will also be keeping an eye out for other young adult books that sound interesting to me, because I think this is something I need to explore, is these other genres of young adult that I might be missing out on that could potentially be other new favorites. So highly recommend you check out Jordan Taylor if you have not already, if you are not familiar with her. I will link these books and her social media below and whatnot. But other than that, I don't have anything else. This was kind of a quick hitter. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.